This year, one of Montreal's most iconic landmarks celebrating a major milestone. 150 years, if you can believe it, of Mount Royal Park. Designed by famed landscape architect Frederick Law Olmsted, the same man behind New York Central Park, Mount Royal has become the heart of Montreal since 1876. For generations, it's been a gathering place for walkers, cyclists, skiers, tourists, students, families, on and on and on. All while shaping the identity of this city. Let's welcome Jean-François Leclerc onto the program, a Montreal historian. Jean-François, bienvenue à l'émission.
Hi.
Great to talk to you here. So why don't we go right to the beginnings? How did it even become a park in the first place? How did we get Mount Royal Park?
Yes, but maybe first to say that for us today, we are so happy to celebrate a positive event. That's true. We need it more than Canadians. It's important.
Yeah.
But what we have to know, the history of Montreal Park is a history of kind of conflict of visions. I'm sorry to say that, but the end was nice. Was good anyway. But first it started during the 1840s when new residents building their mansions, country houses around the Montreal. Said to the city council during the 1840s, because some of those businessmen were sitting at the council too. They said, it could be nice to have, a boulevard, what they call a boulevard. It was a promenade, to go to the summit of the mountain. It would be nice for them because it was their backyard. But it would be also nice for tourism. They were, thinking about tourism during the 1840s. So more than 10 projects after, the city decided to move. And they moved because there was one of the owner who was expecting his property would be bought by the city because they had to buy, big properties to do the park. And he cut the wood, and so it made a scarf, visible from the city of Montreal, the small city, the old Montreal area. And so many people were very angry. So the city decided to hire Olmsted and to manage that park. And but what happened is that Olmsted, put some genes in the park which were not exactly. It was not so possible to manage them together. A park to be preserved, a place to be preserved, but to be accessible. Mm-hmm. That's the problem. Was the same for 150 years old.
Yeah, because the idea here was a place, and maybe you'll correct me here. The idea was to have a place that Montrealers could enjoy from the start, or did that just happen? No,
for Olmsted, it was the most important point of view. So preserve the nature and hence highlight the natural qualities of the mountain, which has been damaged for many decades because, they were getting stone from that wood, agriculture, and so it was not so nature anymore. But finally, he said, okay, it has to be accessible to everyone, old people with less capacities. But during the next history, during the 20th century, what happened is that French-speaking elites of the east part of the city said, okay, we want to go to the mountain too. It's not possible to be from the center, from the south, the nice district of the south. And so they planned to have tramways and after, Camille for cars. And so it made a big fight between more Anglophone vision of the mountain, which was preservation, quietness, and the other part was we want to have fun on the mountain. We want to have fun.
Yeah.
Picnics, activities. And what is incredible is that in 1895, there was an Anglophone association, Women of Anglophone Society, who created an association, and they put a petition, and they got 120,000 signatures. Montreal was 150,000 persons
Wow,
at that
so
time.
a lot of people signed.
Yeah. So, that conflict between those two visions finally merged during the 60s, but it was because that vision was existing on the Anglophone side. It preserved Montaigne from big projects, crazy projects that were full of them.
So I want to get to that. We're with Jean-François Leclerc, and we're talking about 150 years of Parc Montreal, Mount Royal Park. Jean-François, were there a couple of other moments in history, maybe in the last century, where things could have gone very differently for Mount Royal Park? There were decision points that were made. I'm always interested in that theory of multiple universes. Like there's a universe out there with different decisions happen. Is there a version of Mount Royal Park that's all condos out there? What do you think?
Yes, because, if there was, first, before the parks, they put cemeteries on the biggest parks of Montreal, the Montaigne, are the cemeteries.
Yeah.
And it's from the 1850s. So, and after everywhere in the world where you have a mountain, a hill, what happened? They built houses. It started all around, during the 19th century. So the park is a tiny part, not tiny, but a part of the mountain. And we forget that there are 3 summits, and one of them is the Westmount Summit.
Yes.
So, but there is a small park there, but it could have been the same for the rest of the mountain. And when we are talking about the project of tramway, the cars going there, Jean Drapeau during the 50s said to a car automobilist association, he said, in 50 years, they will say, it's incredible. They didn't do anything to pass through the mountain to go from the south to the north. They will say, they were crazy, those people. So you can imagine that there were many, many crazy, big statues of the Virgin Mary. The first cross was to be a belvedere, very big. During the 50s, there were project of having museums, theaters there. It was not necessarily a bad idea, but it would have been maybe what was fearing the Anglophone society, a kind of Coney Island.
That's right. So Jean-François, listen, I only have a couple of minutes left here. Yeah. You brought up the cross, and I'd be remiss if I didn't spend a moment here. What should we know about the Mount Royal Cross? What should our listeners know that they probably don't?
Yeah, but the cross is a project to make the French Canadian culture and religion visible from the top of the mountain. It was also the fight between those two communities, wanting to say we are existing. So in 1924 there was a big collect, in schools to do that, and there were many parades during the Saint Jean Baptiste celebration. So that's the mountain. It's the mix of wills, different vision, but it happened that it mixed, it merged, and it's doing what we know today. So
and to wrap up here, maybe on the same idea, what's one thing about Mount Royal Park that all of our listeners should know but don't?
They should know that the mountain is not nature. Now the city try to repair the nature of the mountain. But what we say when we are reading about that, it's a work of art. It's a work of art. Everyone, every era put something there. And so it's a kind like a natural monument of the identity of Montreal.
Jean-François, you know so much about this. It's like you're a historian or something. Thank you for coming on today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
That's Montreal historian Jean-François Leclerc.
I'm Luke Wilson. Join me each week for Film Never Lies. Since retiring from the NFL, I've had a lot on my mind, and now I've got my own show. So if you're tired of lazy takes, if you want honest conversations, join us each week. Film Never Lies, available on all TSN platforms and the iHeartRadio app.